and welcome to class number 7 here on the Academy of Colour. I'm Leanne Chivers and I'm going to be with you for the next 2 hours where we have a look at our AutoShip 5, our watercolour pencil box. I'm really quite excited to be. It's been a journey, hasn't it, that we've all been on together? You, me, Liam and Taylor, we've been on this journey together all the way through the education pieces, and I'm really pleased that we've gotten this far. I think you're going to love the contents of this box, and I think you're going to really enjoy working with them. I also think they might become your favourite. I'm going to make that bold statement right here, right now. I think they might become your favourite. They really are a fabulous, I've got an itchy nose, don't know why. Excuse me while I itch. I think they're really fabulous, and the box is full of stuff which is incredibly useful to you. It's the penultimate box. That's a little bit exciting, penultimate box. And I think just let's take a couple of minutes to have a look inside, and then we'll get right on with all of the education pieces, how to use this new product, because it's different to what you've had so far. Up to now, you've been receiving alcohol markers and you've been receiving watercolour markers, aqua markers. These are watercolour pencils that you've got, and they're our brand new Duo watercolour pencil, where we have put 2 separate colours in the one pencil for you, so you get double the bang for your buck. So you've got 12 pencils in here, 24 colours. We also give you 2 of the water valve colouring brushes, so they're for you to be able to do different types of techniques, and you get 2 of those, and you get the perfect pencil sharpener in here. That's really important, and I'll talk to you about that as we go through the course of the education piece. Remove this layer, and underneath you get your panel to put all of your stamps. You get the stamps themselves, and in this one you get 4 lovely statement images with the supporting sentiments. And then, of course, you get your watercolour card. And you only get watercolour card in this box because they are watercolour pencils. So you've got that in there too. And it comes exactly as you would not expect usually. There's one little thing you need to be aware of, however. Your pencils come in this box. So I've seen a few of you open it up and say, oh, but my pencils aren't in my box. And so many of you have been very helpful and said, have a little rummage in your packaging. You'll find the box with the pencils in. The pencils were put in here because we like to keep them safe. And pencils, you have to be careful. They can be quite volatile. So we wanted you to be able to take them out and put them into the storage yourself. And you could keep them in there. We've given you the tray with all of the correct spaces in there for you to be able to organise them. But the pencils themselves are in this little box. Find that in your brown paper package and you'll be able to put them inside. Okay, so that's the housekeeping. That's what you're getting inside. Let's just take a couple of seconds to have a look at what the contents actually looks like. We've got a comment coming up on screen, which apparently is full of excitement. Okay, so this is New Health Martha. Martha, have you got new health? Tell us all about it. What is the new health? This is the box I've been waiting for. Love watercolour pencils. So glad to hear that, Martha. It's actually the first medium I ever coloured with as a paper crafter, and so it does remain for me one of my first loves, I have to say, and I do really, just very therapeutic. I'm looking forward to showing you the different things you can do with them. So just to show you the things out of the box, you've got your 12 pencils and your 24 colours there. You've got your 2 valve brushes, you can see. And you'll have 2 different size nibs in there. I'm just going to show you with my 2 here, because hopefully I can't get the lid off there where it's glued down, but with these 2 you can. So you see you get 2 wide 2 valve brushes, 2 different sizes of nib. So a fatter one and a thinner one. So larger detail, finer detail. So we've given you those 2 different sizes of nib, because that's important when you're watercolouring, to have that option. And then you've got your pencil sharpener. A pencil sharpener with any artist pencil, wax and watercolour, is incredibly important to be of a high quality and really not damage your pencil. So I'll talk to you, as we start to use them, I'll talk to you about how to sharpen properly and why this is really important. Here you can see all of the colours, and of course this is downloadable again for you. so that you can colour in your swatches yourself. You can see the fabulous large statement stamp images we've got there. And then these are those when they're coloured in. So you can see what they look like once they're coloured. And we're going to show you lots of different examples on how to use them. So I've got for you today some different colouring techniques and to look at how we can colour differently with watercolour pencils. And then I've got a little pile of, I'm going to go find them back there, a little pile of background techniques so I can show you some different things you can do with them too. It'll be a little bit more relaxed than our usual education sessions, I think, because I don't have to cover alcohol and watercolour in this one. Does mean I'll be able to go into a little bit more depth than we would usually. But of course, what you've got, as always, and let's just remind you, is for every single demonstration I show you, you will have the step-by-step charts that will make sure available for you to be able to see on the Facebook page and on the website. You'll also have my handwritten notes. And I know you love them, and I don't know why, but you do. So we're going to include them for you as well. And then I'll be showing you little examples of the finished images that have been coloured in. They will also be uploaded for you in a different colourway as well, so that you can have a look and copy, replicate all of those things while you're practicing your new techniques. And that is for every demonstration that I have for you. So now that we've done all the housekeeping, we're ready to get started, I think. And I think we're just going to dive straight in, everyone, because, there's a good amount to get through, but we've got a nice relaxed pace, which means we can take our time to really talk about some of the things we've prepared and getting ready. Now, yes, so Taylor's just telling me we've got a couple of questions on how to fill the water brushes, and can I explain that? I was just about to, so yes, absolutely I can. When you get your valve water brush, it actually twists off. Liam, you've done a good job of twisting that back on. We might have to get Liam in here to get that off. Hang on, he's putting me in vision and he's coming. Let's do it on the empty one. He screwed it back on really, really tight. Here he's coming. Oh, but you know what? I'm turning it the wrong way. That's why. I've done it, Liam. Thank you, Liam. Thank you. I was twisting it the wrong way. Right. So when you hold it, twist it away from yourself. So I was twisting towards myself, which is righty-tighty, and I should have been doing lefty-loosey. So there you go. Twist it off. The whole valve piece is here. It's a reservoir underneath. You fill it with water in whatever way, whether you want to do it with a little under the tap, whether you want to do it with a little jug, whatever it is you want. It's entirely up to you. This one's empty. And so what I would do with that one is, I have done this before, where I would squeeze it and then suck the water in. Or you can just tip the water in, take it to a tap, do it with a pipette if you've got a pipette. It's up to you. But just make sure that it's not full beyond, I'm just going to show you, not full beyond this point. There you go, not beyond that point. Because this here, you need the space here to create a vacuum so that the water doesn't continuously flow out of your brush, so that your water will, with the valve that's included in here, allow that water to flow as you're working with it, rather than just flooding all over the page. That's really important. So up to here, not beyond. Up to here, not beyond. Okay, great. Right, so they're full of water. That's how you do it. Do your lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, not what I was doing. I think that's because I'm used to doing things upside down and back to front for the TV. I kind of go in the opposite direction rather than the real, as a matter of course. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. I just wanted to see Liam run round here. That's what it was. It was a joy to behold, I'll not lie. Now then, the watercolour pencils that you're getting have got two colours on each pencil, and I'm just showing you here with the elderberry and the iris, and a reason for that is you will get two colours that will work together really quite nicely when you blend. So let me just put these two colours beside each other for now, and then we'll talk about how we apply colour in a second. So this is just a very basic demonstration. And then if I use my brush that has some water in, and I just, see, you need to just get it going with your little reservoir. There we go. So I can see the water running here. I don't know if you can see that. That's just a bit shiny. So now that that water is running, I'm able to move that colour. And you see it just immediately blends on the page, and I can make the transition between the two, which is mix the new colour. And then clean your little brush, because you'll have colour on the end of the tip. Clean that off and then smooth that out, and I've managed to make those two colours transition into each other. So that's why you have two different colours in each pencil. It also means that we can give you 12 pencils and give you a lovely 24 colours rather than 12 pencils. And 24 is always better than 12 when it comes to colours, isn't it? Now then, I'm going to need, Liam, I'm going to just have you running again, if that's all right. I'm going to ask Liam if he can fill me with this brush as well, because I'm going to tip pots of water all over the table, trying to get the water to go in the little space. So I need this little brush filling, and then out of that other box, I need those other two brushes filling. Just, yes please, Liam's going to fill all 4 brushes, just because it means I don't have to keep stopping during our class and showing you some different things. All right, so that's how they move. You scribble the colours down. Let's do it with another colour so you can see. And this is watercolour card I'm using. I'm not pushing, so I'm letting oh my word, the lead of the pencil, that's the word. I'm letting the lead of the pencil touch the cardstock, but I'm not pushing hard. And you can see the texture of the card there still underneath. If I pushed hard, that's what it would look like. So you can see that solid colour there by pushing hard. Puts a lot more pigment than you actually need down. Sorry, Liam, that one's full. That one, please, darling. Oh, I dropped it on the floor. Sorry, oh my gosh, she's so helpful. And then the other two. Thank you very much. Now, when I put the water on this, look, this blends beautifully, and you get that lovely soft lay down of colour as I put the water over the top there, and then it continues to move because there's a lot of pigment in these pencils, so I can continue to do my watercolouring as long as I would like, and you get that lovely soft application. Keep cleaning your brush tip. When you're using a reservoir brush, you're going into lots of different colours, so keep cleaning it on a piece of scrap. If I do the same here, look, it just is a lot more intense, and then it will go a lot further. And what I've done is essentially waste a lot more pigment than I needed to by putting that intense colour down. A little bit goes an awful long way. So, and you don't want to break your lead. You don't want to put too much pressure on this. You don't want to waste any of it. So just a light touch. The lead is just touching the cardstock, and you're just allowing that to graze over the surface. Oh, Heidi thinks they have a lovely blend. Thank you, Heidi. I'm pleased to hear that. They are an exceptional quality, I have to say, but they're artist quality. They're Spectrum Noir quality. It's what you've come to expect. Now you can see there, that's quite rough. So you can see the texture of the watercolour card through there, and you can see that there's not an awful lot of pencil. You might think that you're not going to get a nice orange set of colour there with that, but as I put my water down with my brush, because it emulsifies, melts if you like, the binder, and lets the pigment move, look how much more vibrant it is once the water's added, and look how far that goes, and that rough texture disappears when you do your blend. So that for me would be the top tip in terms of putting your colour down. Don't think you have to put too much. Okay, so that is the lesson on applying the colour. Let's get straight on with colouring a butterfly, and we're just going to go direct to card. So I have stamped this with my Finesse waterproof ink pad. And when I've used my Finesse waterproof ink pad, I've just used a rocker block or a stamping platform or whatever, or an acrylic block or whatever it is that you've got at home that you love. And I've used that to stamp it. Now, if you don't have this, because sometimes we don't have them in stock, not sure if they're in stock on the website now, a StazOn would work similar for you. Now then, the colours that I'm going to use to start my butterfly. Oh, they're on the screen. Well, that's helpful. Thank you so much. We're doing a red berry, petunia, elderberry, iris, opal blue, regal blue, ocean aqua, ebony and sunshine. All the colours. So we're going to start first with the red berry, petunia, elderberry and iris, which I've got in my hand here. And we're just going to choose areas to add the colour. So I'm going to bring in my step by step so you can see me do this at the same time, and you can see what I'm doing with the step by step that I've created for you, and also the bit that I've got printed out. So I'm just going to start adding colour in areas on the butterfly. So the first areas I'm going to deal with are these little pieces here. I'm taking my pencil, and exactly as I mentioned before, not too much pressure, just adding in the colour where I would like it to be. And I'm applying it roughly where it's going to go. Because it's watercolour, remember it's very, very forgiving, so you don't need to worry about it being too precise. And then I'm going to move around here, do a little bit here, and we'll stop there. Now what I'm going to do, in fact I might come a little bit further down with this one. Now what I'm going to do is go to the opposite side. So I've got the opposite side now with my elderberry colour. That's the opposite end of the pencil. And remember, if I've put two colours together on a pencil, they work together. So if you're doing an ombre like this between colours, sticking with the one pencil and the two colours I've given you, if you're a new starter, you're going to get beautiful results. So I'm going to the opposite side of this piece of the butterfly wing, and I'm adding in now my elderberry. And you can do up and down motions, you can do little circular motions, whatever you want. It's entirely up to you. I'm leaving an area in the centre white. So that's called preserving a highlight, isn't it? We've learned all about that with alcohol colouring. It's exactly the same with what we're doing here with the watercolour, because what we're going to do is move the colour towards each other and then blend them in to meet in the middle, exactly as we did when we did this earlier. So I'm applying it there, and I'm going to match exactly the same over on this side. So let's pop this colour in here. And this is incredibly, I find, incredibly therapeutic. I really do love working with coloured pencils because, you know, it's not too difficult. Any one of us can stamp an image and apply a little bit of colour like this. It's really going back to what we used to do with colouring books when we were kids. And I have very happy memories of sitting with colouring books with my mum, colouring a page each, with the book open, pencils in the middle, one page each, and, you know, having a really lovely afternoon. And it's kind of that very mindful, relaxing way of using your colouring mediums. So you absolutely can get lost in the colouring, Liam. It's a very, very easy thing to do. Now what I'm going to do is continue. So because we're not working with alcohol markers, so we don't need to worry about alcohol drying or wet mediums when we're colouring, things evaporating. We're just putting pencil on the paper. You can go on and fill in this whole butterfly, if you like, with your colour map of where you're going to be applying the water later. So for example, I know I'm going to put red here, and I know I'm going to put the petunia here, which is a slightly different colour to the elderberry. So I'm going to pop that in too. And I don't have to worry about it. I could do this on the whole butterfly if I wanted to, before I actually add any water. Just make my map of where I would like colours to go. And it's as simple as that. I wish there was more I could say to make it sound a little bit more complex than it is, so that it sounded really fancy, but it's not really fancy. It's really, really easy. In fact, I'm just following the maps that I made earlier, popping the colours in where I think they'll look nice, not really worrying about it, just, you know, thinking what a butterfly would look like, popping my colour in and making my little map. So we'll do a couple more of these, and then we'll start adding some water. So now I've flipped over to the elderberry side of my pencil, and you can see I'm doing exactly the same thing all the way around. Now what we're looking at here is the most basic way, the starter way of using a watercolour pencil. The most traditional way, should we say. That might be a better way of putting it. Now, to get your water flowing with your water valve brush, your nib, even though you might leave water in it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, this will dry out because the valve will keep the water where it needs to be, and because we didn't fill it all the way, the vacuum will do the job. So to get it running, you need to use what's called capillary action. Capillary action is movement. You need to do a little squeeze, and then the movement will keep the water flowing. You should be able to see that. That's just, there you go. You can see the shine of where the water has started to come out of the brush because I've done that. Don't, whatever you do, keep squeezing all the time, because all you'll do is flood your artwork. So once you've done a tiny squeeze and moved your brush and you've got some moisture flowing, and you can feel the moisture in the bristles, you've got some moisture flowing, stop squeezing. And don't give it a slight squeeze until the bristles start to dry out, because if you keep squeezing, you'll flood and you'll lose control. That's really, really important. Then all you do is take your brush to where you've laid your pencil down, over the top of the colour, blends the watercolour with the card, emulsifies it, bring it down into your preserved highlight, off onto your kitchen towel to dry any excess colour off the brush before you do your join. Go to your next colour, little movements to emulsify it, move up into your preserved highlight, mix the two together, and you're done. Just like that. So easy to do. And then move on to the next one. What you will notice is I keep going back to my tissue to clean my brush. So my tissue is to clean any of the pigment that's staying on the bristle, clean that off before I move into another colour. And that would be the top tip and the most important thing for you to remember. Clean it off, come back in, move the colour around, clean it off, move it. How easy is this? We can all do this, and you know that I love watercolouring, and I always say to you, it is incredibly forgiving and you will look like an absolute pro, whether you are or whether you're not. And then we'll do it with this one. Now, what you can do is a little bit of colour or a lot. It's entirely up to you. And when you're doing your shading, you can leave it darker in the corner if you want to. And then you see I go back to your tissue all the time to take the residual pigment off the bristles of the brush. Move this one in, blend those two together, and look at that lovely transition between, that was red berry and petunia. So a lovely red and a purple, and look how they've moved together lovely on this butterfly. And you can do the same over here. Now I'm just going to show you quickly on this one. If I put a lot, oh that's the wrong one, get the right one, Leanne. If I put a lot more of this colour down, so if I apply more intense colour, that is going over the same piece time and again, so you can't see very much of the white cardstock underneath. And I go a little bit further. I'm just going to show you the difference between the two pieces to give you the choice of whether you want subtle or whether you want more bold, more of a statement. Because what that's done is leave the colour, you can see there, much more intense than there, because there was more pigment on the card. And it would be the same with the red down here. And then when I blend them together, you get more of that purpley orange there. So you can see this one is more intense than this one. It's purely how much pencil I've put on the card, and it really does depend on the result that you want to achieve. I'm just going to clean that little bit of, because that's going to bother me, that little mistake out there where I went over. So if you do a mistake, dry it. Let me show you actually. Why not? Let's do it. Because this is wet. This is wet and it's live and we're just talking through it together. So this is wet at the minute. I'm going to dry it. We've got a question while it's drying. Does the size of the brush tip matter? Only for the fine detail that you want to move into. So that's why I've given you two brushes in the kit. You've got a larger nib and you've got a smaller nib, so for very fine detail. However, even our large one, you can see tapers to a very fine point. So actually it's going to be fine for fine detail too. The only difference is how small of an area you're going to colour. And I am using the large one now. So now that I've dried that, I've gone back in with some water only to where I'd gone over into that little circle. And now when I go with my kitchen towel and dab that away, I've removed the error. So you can see I dried the piece around it, so I didn't dilute that anymore. Went in with just a clean brush with water to the little error that I made. Dried it, gone. Could do the same here. See, I was a mucky crafter up here. So plenty of water, move it around, just with clean water, over the top, reactivate it, dab it away. And when it dries, you'll just do that a couple of times and you can clean up your messes in that respect. All right, and then we'll continue. So we're just emulsifying. Emulsifying means wetting the pigment so it moves around on the card. The binder that's holding the lead in the pencil gets dissolved and the pigment is allowed to move around then. Clean your brush on your tissue. Move to the next colour. Emulsify. See, I can go into the small areas with that. And then as I start to bring them together, little circles to mix the two colours and get that transition. And there we go. And you just do this all the way around. Could not be easier. Very, very simple to do. There we go. You see it starts to come together really quite quickly. So emulsify one colour, clean your brush, emulsify the next one, and then mix the two colours together. It really is. I mean, the thing is with this, you feel like you want to nod off, and you can also lose hours when you're doing this. It is incredibly therapeutic, and the results are, I think you'll agree, really, really pretty. And, you know, for a new beginner to colouring, anybody can do this, and it starts to look and feel really quite artistic. So the next colours I'm using here are Regal Blue and Opal Blue and Ocean and Aqua. So let's put those colours in. So we've got Regal Blue and Opal Blue and Ocean and Aqua. We'll do Ocean and Aqua in these two big parts here. So we'll go on in with the pencil again. And this is with the Ocean. Okay, so New Health Martha wants to know, New Health Martha, thank you Martha, wants to know, how do you clean the brushes when done? Martha, if you've been diligent about rubbing your brush onto your onto your tissue as we go, you really don't need to do anything. But what I would say is get a piece of scrap watercolour card. So if I do some colouring and then show you, piece of scrap watercolour card, so I'm going to do this blue colour here and drag it down before I get to the Ocean colour. Let's say I'm finished now and I want to put my brush away. All you've got to do on your scrap piece is move your brush until no more colour comes off. So you see the colour was left on the fibres of the brush there. Now when I'm moving that, no colour is coming off. Now you can put it away. You will get staining. So you can see the tip of my nib is no longer as pristine as it was. The pigment will stain. Doesn't matter, as long as when you're putting it on card, it's clear, that will not transfer to your colouring. And then we emulsify the other colour, which is Ocean down here, drag it up to the blue, mix between the two, drag some pigment down if you want to. And by the way, I haven't squeezed this brush once since I primed it. So the capillary action, which is the movement, keeps the water flowing through to the fibres at the right ratio. If you squeeze, you flood. And flood means all the water runs out over your images and ruins it. So you definitely do not want to be continually squeezing. In fact, you can see I'm actually holding it at the point where I can't squeeze. Up here is squeezy, down here isn't. and I'm not applying any pressure to the pencil, but the water is flowing. Once I've got the water running, it will do the job itself. You don't need to keep squeezing it to make the water come out. That's really, really important. If you take nothing else away from this session that we're doing today, other than that, that would be the most important thing. Do not keep squeezing your brush. Just going to put a couple of blues in here. We'll stop in a second and look at some other techniques, because I don't think you need to see me do this on every tiny little bit of this butterfly. So Marcia says, when blending the colours, do we blend into the lighter one, or is it personal preference? Start with the lightest first or blend in. With watercolour pencils, it makes no odds. As long as you do whatever you prefer. As long as between each colour, without exception, you're doing that and taking the colour off. So say I've done some blue, cleaning it. As long as you're doing that between each one, it doesn't matter. If you're not cleaning your brush, then you start with the light and go into the dark, because if you go from the dark into the light, it's going to obliterate the light. But my advice is just clean always between the two colours, and you don't need to worry about it. Okay, so you'll continue. You can see that butterfly is coming together lovely, and just depending on whether you want to put a lot of colour or a little is entirely up to you. And you've got the step-by-steps that you can see here. When it's finished, this is what it's going to look like. And so you'll continue with your butterfly. It will look absolutely beautiful. You can mount it onto a finished card if you would like, and I'm going to show you how to do this watercolour background too a little bit later on, so you'll see how that happens, and you'll end up with a beautifully watercoloured butterfly. So very simple. Scribble the colour down, move it around with some water out of your brush, and you're done. Could not be easier. And then I've just got a different one here in a different colourway. So you can see by mixing up the colours, we've got a cool and a warm. And then the lovely background that I'm going to show you, the lovely pencil. I love the pencil watercolour background. I think it's gorgeous. I will show you how to do them in the background section. All right, so that's how you just colour an image directly out of the box. Moving on to this next one. A little bit excited about showing you this one, I have to say. Look at this. It's fancy. Right, so we've got the step-by-steps. And we've got, I'll show you them. Got the step-by-steps as usual. There you go. So they'll be uploaded for you. Got my handwritten notes as well that you'll be able to refer to, of course. And we've got a couple of examples. That's what we're going to achieve. So this is what we're going to learn now. We're going to have a look at how to use a piece of watercolour card to make a palette for us to colour from. So I'm just going to bring in a piece of watercolour card to the side here. That's a spare piece. And I would say if you've bought any spare watercolour cards, you can make one palette. I've got a whole piece. You just need small pieces cutting, maybe 2-inch strips. That's all you need. You just need little bits, but I've got a whole piece, so I'm sure you'll forgive me. The colours we're going to be using are Petunia. Are they on the screen? They're coming on the screen. Petunia, Soft Red, Blush and Mango, and I believe we're going to use, there they are, Spruce and Bamboo, they're for the leaves, and Ebony, which is black. And Ebony, of course, and Ebony is going to create some of the deeper shade for us. All right, so we've got our image stamped in the Finesse waterproof, as we've done, as we talked about earlier with the previous one, onto watercolour card, and I've got my brush, the largest tip again, I do like it, and it's full of water and it's been cleaned. So there's no ink left on my brush. Now what we're going to do is create a palette. And to create a palette, you just need to scribble down the colours that you're going to be using onto your scrap of watercolour card. Now remember when we talked about pressure, when we were colouring directly onto an image earlier and we didn't put on too much pressure, we just did small amounts. Remember when we did this and we talked about just colouring very gently so you could see the texture underneath. When you're creating your palette, you do use a little bit more pressure because what you're getting is intense pigment, intense colour into a small area, and this is creating your paint palette for you. So we've got my petunia and my soft red. I'm now going to do the soft red. Oh, what was that? Red berry and petunia. This is soft red and blush. Soft red and blush. And we should have a yellow one in here as well, I think. Sunshine. And sunshine. So you can see what I was meaning about only needing small kind of 2-inch strips of card to be able to do your palette. Okay, so you're just scribbling intense little pieces of colour down. I'll need a tiny little bit of the ebony, so I'm putting myself a little bit of the ebony down there. So there I have created my own watercolour palette for this rose, and actually I'm going to put my green down because I'll need that in a second too. So that's my bamboo and my pesto. Is it pesto? Pesto and, oh, I've got, right, spruce, that's on a different one. Here's spruce here. Different pencil. Spruce, there we go. Now, when you're scribbling it down, did you see how there was like little bits of powder just coming off the pencil? That's just the pigment coming off the pencil. You can see them there, those little pieces. You'll hear what I do regular is that, blow them away. Because if you don't, when you start to add your water, they can all start mixing into each other and it'll contaminate your palette, and you don't want to do that. I do keep my pencils out. You don't have to keep them in your hand, but keep them where you just use them in case you need to add to your palette at some point while we're doing this. So the first petal we're going to do is just pick one of them. Let's pick this one and decide where we're going to start putting the colour. So you're just going to pick up whatever it is you're colouring with. So I'm going to start with my, what's this one? Oh, red berry. Have I put red berry down and I didn't need it? Oh, it's these three I need. I got excited and I put red berry down as well. So we're going with this one, which was the petunia. Do you know what? I might stick a bit of red berry in just for the laughs as well. So you can see what I've done is I've coloured into that with my brush. That's picked up this colour onto the fibres of my brush, and now I can watercolour this in here, and the colour will apply lovely. And I'm not putting any pressure on the brush. Remember, the capillary action does that for you. And then what I can do is pick up extra colour and deepen that if I want to. And as I drag that out, it'll be softer and it'll get more diluted as we move across the petal, which we can see there. Pick up some more of the colour if I want. And you can go back and add to this. There we go. And then what I'm going to do now is clean my brush, because I'm going to move into another colour. So moving into another colour, I'm going to use a little bit of, let's do this, which was soft red. And so now my soft red is moving out from the purple that I had in there. So I'm managing to blend that, clean my brush again, pick up a little bit of the blush. And so you see what I'm managing to create here is a transition between all four of these colours on this watercolour petal. And then finally, I'm going to take the sunshine, preserve my highlight, bring a little bit of the sunshine around here, move it all the way down because it'll change to a peachy colour as I move it down here. It stays sunshine on the tip, move it in, blend it, preserve my highlight, so you've got that little shine in the centre and you get that beautiful watercoloured petal on your flower. Now, if you want to intensify the shade area there, this is where you can clean your brush again and go and pick up a tiny bit, just barely a touch of the ebony, which is black. And then I would bring it in to the areas where I would have more shade. And you can see what I can do there is add in that little bit of shade around that area there and not really contaminate any of those lovely colours that I've put in. And if I've put in too much, if I feel I want to take it away, see, I'm just rubbing over the top, cleaning my brush between every time, because I'm actually picking the colour off, and now I'm happy with the level of shade that I've got in there. And it really just depends on how much colour you scribble on your palette as to how intense the colours will be on your rose petal. So to give you another example, if I want to add more colour to this now, it's started to dry, I can just go straight back over the top and add more colour in to where my palette is, because I'm about to do another petal. And I can just keep doing that time and time again. You don't need to worry about moving to another piece of your card. That's why I was saying it's great to do this. And actually what I do, can I just tell you at home, is with some scissors, I cut a 2-inch strip and then I write the name of the colours and I scribble them beside, and I keep that. It's not going to wear out. It's not going to expire. It's not going to not work for you. So if you come back in a month and you've scribbled coloured pencil down like this on your card, you can still go and reactivate it with your water and pick it up and paint with it. So you've created a palette that you can then keep. So if you name your palette for your pencils, you can just keep going back to them, going back to them, going back to them. You don't have to worry about throwing it away when you've done. And I think that's a good thing for you to take away from this education too, is to not throw these away when you've done them. Keep them and write the names beside them, so that you know you're not like me having to rummage through the pencils. You know exactly what they are. So a little bit of water just to make sure that's nice and wet. We'll do another petal. So we'll start with the petunia again. So I'm picking a little bit up off the palette, and this time I'm going to have the petunia colour here. Some watercolouring in. I can pick up some more. So you see, I'm just manipulating the colour onto my brush, and then from my brush onto the petal. Move it round. There we go. Stop about there. And there's no rhyme or reason about where you stop, it's just how you feel. Clean your brush before you move on to your next colour. You'll end up with a very pretty piece of kitchen towel as this goes, but it'll last you forever. You can see when I'm colouring, I just have a screwed up piece of kitchen towel in my hand constantly. And then go to your next colour. So this is my soft red. And now I'm blending the soft red out a little bit there. Clean my brush, pick up the blush, blend that out, and finally the sunshine. Move it all the way along, because you get the transition, so it goes you get the lovely peachy colours further down here, and it all feels like one petal, but you keep the blush on the end. Always move it around, brings the whole thing together. Feels like it's transitioned into one petal. If you want to add a little bit of shade, tiny bit of ebony. A little bit of shade on that petal, just brings it to life. And move it out, pick it up, clean it off till you're happy with it. And I'm happy with that. Now, if you want to do it, if you want the colour to be a little bit more intense, that's to do a lovely soft watercoloured image. If you want it to be more intense, you can apply colour directly to the petals as well if you want to when they're dry. But I prefer to do it that way, because I think you get that lovely soft build up of colour. And you would just continue to keep adding to your palette with your colours and moving round the flower as you go. Oh my word, that's a bold statement, Liam. That is a bold. Liam says he thinks this might be his favourite demo out of any of the instructional pieces that we've done throughout the whole of the Academy of Colour. Wow, do you love it that much, Liam? He loves the colour blend between the pinks and the yellows. Well, thank you, Liam. And it's easy to do, isn't it? And I bet you feel confident enough to go home and have a go yourself. He does. He's going to be doing it later on tonight. You'll have to show us it. Post it in the group and let us see what you've done. Okay, Liam's going to post his in the group. You post yours in the group. He's going to show us what he's done. And then we see. We've done the sunshine and come round with that. It really is very, very, very pretty. There you go. Now then, once it's dry, if you want to add a little bit more colour to it, you can go directly in with your pencil. And what I would do at that point is, I'm barely going to go over the top. So let's say I want to intensify this a little bit. I can barely, can you just see a whisper across the top? Hardly at all, because I can see where my colour is and all of my shadings in that place was a very, very small amount. And then this is the soft red, small, not a lot. I just want to show you the difference. And then the blush, because we're transitioning between all of them. And then a tiny piece of the sunshine. You see how much more, a bit more vibrant that feels. And then when you take your brush and you just move that colour, keep cleaning, that's just intensified that a slight amount. You see that one's popping a little bit more. It just depends on the result that you want to achieve as to how much of that pigment you put down there. And of course you could do these leaves. You don't have to do your palette as I've done here. You can do them exactly as we did with the butterfly if you want. So you can go straight in with your pencil. And then I'm going to do a bit of sunshine as well. And you know what? That doesn't look great. But trust the process. Go in with your it's not a pen, it's a brush, with your valve brush, emulsify your colour. Get your colour moving first. Don't worry about blending until you've got your colour emulsified, which means it's, you know, the binder has melted, the pigment is moving with the water. Then when you've done that, then you can worry about the blending together. So you can see that's where I'm going back over those two colours, blending them together. And then I will move into the sunshine and bring the sunshine in with that one, and I'll get that blend fully. And I haven't cleaned my brush tip because I want all of the colours to mix together. I don't want that differentiation. I want all three to ombre and give me that movement of a natural leaf that has shine in one area. There you go. So you can use your palette, or you can just put them all directly onto the leaf if you want to. It's entirely up to you. And then when you continue to do that, then of course what you will end up with, depending on how intense you would like it to be, you get that lovely shine in there, and you can make your card, and you've got your step-by-steps to do all of that. And that is how you use a palette and use black to give shade in the darker areas. All right, so that's that one. I feel like we're cooking on gas today, guys. I've got a lot to show you. So, oh, can I just show you this as well? That's the rose done in a different colour palette. So just doing it yellow and orange, but using the black. The black down here is in the can you see, in all of the shaded areas. That's where you're using your ebony, and it really, really does make a difference. So don't be afraid to use that black pencil. That's why I've put it in there, to get that shaded area. Okay, so next we're going to have a look at doing a love hydrangea. One of my favourite flowers in the garden. And we're going to create a custom colour. We've got a question. Okay, Sarik Sarita, sorry, I beg your pardon, Sarita Pike says, would the sparkle pen work with these pencils? Oh, yes, it would. The clear one, you can watercolour with it because it's a clear liquid pencil and you'll get all of the glitter in there. Alternatively, once it's dry, you can go over the top with your clear sparkle pen and just put a layer of shimmer on there. Of course you can. Right, so what we're going to have a look now is how to create a new shade of purple. So we've looked at how we colour directly to the butterfly. We've looked at how to use a palette and how we've used black to put deeper shade in there and ombre between the colours. Now we're going to look at how to create different colours. And what I like to do with these is I will do, and I've explained it to you, I do quite a few blocks of it at once. So I'm going to take my Regal Blue pencil and we'll show you what I'm going to do. I've got Regal Blue and colours are on the screen. We've got Petunia, Elderberry, Regal Blue, Opal Blue and Sunshine. Okay, Regal Blue, Petunia, Elderberry. Let's find Elderberry. There it is. Elderberry, Opal Blue. That's the other one, yeah, and Sunshine. Whenever I say Sunshine, I feel I want to sing, we've got to have a little rain sometimes. I always want to sing Rose Garden whenever I say the word sunshine. I've absolutely no idea why. Okay. Now, what we do is we take the pencils, and we're going to take Elderberry and Petunia and do about 10 blocks of colour. So if I show you what I mean by that, I've got Elderberry and Petunia. And so I'm going to colour a few blocks of this. So we've got Elderberry, Petunia, so they're all and then I've got Petunia, which is a little bit lighter. So you can see I'm just doing my palette again and I'm trying to make those blocks about the same size. Doesn't have to be very precise, it just needs to be about. Okay, so those blocks are about the same size. Then I'm going to take my Regal, but my darkest blue, which is Opal or Regal, doesn't matter, whichever one you want, and I'm going to scribble different amounts of blue onto those blocks. So to give you an example, on top of, there's a block that's got quite a lot. Here's a block, doesn't have as much. Here's a block, has even less. Here's a block which is practically fully coloured. And we'll do exactly the same over here. Now, you might be wondering what's happening. We're being scientists, is what we're doing there, because we're mixing a new colour on our palette. So make sure that you've got your brush clean and that you've got your reservoir flowing, so it hasn't got any colour coming off. And then you simply mix the colours on the palette. So by mixing these two together now in this block, that's the colour, new colour, brand new colour from mixing those two together that I've got. But because this has a little bit less blue and a little bit less blue and more blue, these four colours will all be different because I've varied the amount of blue that I put on top of the same size block of the Petunia or Elderberry that was underneath. And I'll show you that by watercolouring with them. So then I'll just go in and start to watercolour these petals. Now when you're doing a hydrangea like this, where you need a lot of variation in the colours of the petals, this is a great, great way of doing it. And I'll just keep doing that until I've run out of colour in that block. And I'll vary when I'm putting them. I won't put them beside each other. And that's what gets you the variety of colour that we're going for here. That's very true, Taylor. Taylor says, really, we've put more than 24 colours in this box. We've put infinite colours in this box because you can use all of the pencils to create brand new colours, as many as you like. Because look, I've created 8 different colours by varying the amount of Petunia and Regal Blue that I used. And you'll see when I come to put it down what I mean by that. So once you've finished putting those colours down and you're ready to blend it out, clean your brush, and then go back and just drag that colour out. If you need to get some water going, just give it a little squeeze. There we go. And then we just watercolour that down. So I applied a little bit of colour, and then now I'm dragging it out over the petal. So you see, I'm just emulsifying it and getting the blend going. And I'm doing some in a very pastel way, and some are a little bit more intense. And that's how you build up the texture in a hydrangea flower. So that's with the first block. Let's go to this block here. And so this had less blue, more elderberry, and we'll go alongside so you can see the difference. Can you see how it's much more pinky, the colour? Good. So it's much more pinky because it had a lot less blue and a lot more of the pink. So you can go alongside and add those. And you see, I like to keep it quite pastel. It doesn't have to be too dark. There we go. And you can even go and add a little bit of that into the other petals, so you've got some ombre happening if you want to. It's up to you. Okay. And then watercolour it out by just dragging the colour, preserving your highlight, cleaning your brush in between so you can keep that lovely transition from dark to light. This one here had a lot more blue and less petunia, so let's mix this colour and see what this looks like. Put it alongside this one, and you can see that's much more deep in the purple colour. So you're able to vary all of the different colours, or just mix brand new colours that you haven't got by layering pencils on top of each other on the palette and then bringing them to the hydrangea and doing your colouring. And by picking each little petal separately like this and building up, you can see it's already starting to build the light and shade of each of the petals lying over the top of each other. So doing it in this random format will create that look for you because they'll all build up as you go along. So don't worry about having to start here and work across in one way. There's really no need for you to do that. Here's another new colour that we've mixed. This one will be much more pinky. Yeah, I'm hoping so. Liam's saying the differences look subtle, but when I'm putting them next to each other, they're really popping, and that's good. Now, if at any point you think the difference is too subtle, this is what you can do. Just take an extra bit of your dark colour, add it alongside on your palette, because you're changing new colours. Mix it in, and then go in with that. You see, that's very different now. That's more blue, and that's where we get all of the, it's more of a bluey, like an indigo purple now that I've got by mixing those two together. And I'm able to go in and add those, and that's really adding the difference in shade. Now, if you want the opposite and you want it to be a lot more pinky, then you just go in and add in more of the pinky one. So you take this colour to, let's say this one, for example, add in a lot more pink. When you mix that and go in, that one's a lot more pinky purple. Lots of you are loving this technique, which I'm really grateful to hear. Thank you. I think it's sometimes when you look at something like that, you can be forgiven for thinking I could never do it. But when you see how easy it is when just creating your little palette and using this, you know, in a random fashion, just going and adding colour wherever you want basically, and seeing how it's building up in front of you, it makes it much more accessible and easy to do. Okay. All right, so you'll continue to do your flowers in this way, your petals of your flower in this way. If you want to add in a little bit more interest every now and again, you can just have a little bit of the blue as a palette and a little bit of the pinky purple as a palette, and then I'll show you what I would do with that. Emulsify the blue, and then I would go in and just touch a little bit here. Look at the difference. It just makes that petal pop. And so you can go and pick a couple of places to do that by just adding in the highlights in the bluey, the shade in the bluey colour, and that adds a little bit of interest into those petals. You can do exactly the same with your pink. So pick up a little bit of that pink and go and intensify around the edge. It's like adding in your deeper shade when you're alcohol colouring. And look how it starts to make those petals pop. And just use the same colours you've used to mix your new colour when you're doing this. Just use them separately and go in and add a little bit just to the edges and places, and they'll start to really pop off the page. So continue doing that all the way around so that you're starting to get all of your flower head done. To get this beautiful shade around here, that's really easy. Take your pencil, any colour, doesn't matter what colour you want, any colour you like. I'm using the Regal Blue. And then I'm just gently, you know how we looked at doing the gentle colour earlier where we're hardly touching the page so you can see the texture of the card underneath. I'm just going round there, around the whole image. I'll just do one side. So we'll do that to there. Bring it out. Okay. And then with your water brush, just bring it out. And it gives you that lovely kind of soft artwork surrounding, and be really quite, you know, random with it. Now what you will see inside here are little areas where you can see through the flower, where they're not petals. And so you'll just take that same blue and go into the little areas and just carry it round. If you've got any little white areas left, go and carry that round in there. And then what you can also do is pick up, and I like to do, is pick up a little bit of my, see that's my ebony from my palette from earlier. And then I'm going to go in and add that. Taylor says you could frame this and hang it on the wall. You could, and you're your own artist, and why wouldn't you want to frame it and hang it on the wall? You could make yourself a whole little triptych of designs. You could make little watercolour greeting cards that you send to family and friends that they then frame and hang on the wall. Much nicer to send them a little picture frame that they can put up and keep as a reminder than a card that gets put in a drawer after a week. Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. You go around with the black and it just gives it a little bit more shade. And if you want to intensify the blue, pick it up from your palette. So add some of that blue to a palette. You put that there. Clean your brush. Just make sure you've got a nice clean brush with some water. Just get the muck off there. It will stain. Don't worry about the staining. Pick up a different colour blue. Go in and add a little bit of intensity with the blue, and they'll all mix together in the card, and you really do want it to look a little bit washed out and a little bit watery, a little bit loose, a little bit random. So it is watercolour at the end of the day. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not intended to be perfect. And as you do that, you build up that intensity all the way around your image. And then it will be finished, and that's what you'll have. And if you want to make it into a card, you can do that too. And the leaves were done in exactly the same way I did the leaves earlier for the rose. Have I got a different colourway sample? I do. There you go. Easy. All right, so that's how you mix a new colour palette. And now we're going to have a look at a different technique again. And this is wet into wet. Now we've done wet into wet when we've done our alcohol watercolour markers, haven't we? Where we wet the card and then we drop the colour in and it... Now it won't explode like that with a pencil, but you can get a very similar wet into wet result. And I've got the step-by-steps for you here, and this is what you're going to be able to achieve. So... There we go. It's like I'm reading everybody's mind apparently, because Sarita's just asked, do we still prime the paper with water like we do the aqua pens? For this next technique, yes. For everything that I've just shown you up to now, no need. Just go straight in with the pencil, because you're dissolving the pigment, which is a powder, in that pencil. It's not the same as working with a dye, and they're the two different things. So let me just tell you about that. In your aqua markers, you've got a dye watercolour. In your pencils, you've got a pigment watercolour. Now, dyes in UV light will fade in time if you put them in direct sunlight. Pigment does not. So if you're wanting to do a piece of artwork that's going to remain on the wall or in sunlight or out on the mantelpiece for a long time, pigment's a better way to do it. And so it's actually a little bit more forgiving as well, actually, when you're colouring with it. So pencils are pigment, aqua markers are dye. And so that's the difference. So no, you don't need to prime. To the pointer that I've gotten now, with what I'm about to show you now, we're going to prime. Okay, hopefully that answers for you. Now, what I've got here is step-by-steps that we're going to be uploading to the website and the Facebook page, so you know what you're doing. And then we're going to also need to use a white heat embossed piece of card with the floral on, because this is what we will achieve at the end. So I've already got mine done. So hopefully you can just see if I do that. You just see that? That's got my white floral on. Now, we're going to use carrot and mango. We're going to use, I'm just remembering the colours, red berry, carrot and mango. There we go. And we've got, oh, colours on the screen. Red berry, carrot, mango, sunshine, ocean, ebony, that's the black, ocean and ebony, umber, nutmeg, oh, umber, nutmeg on the same one, umber, nutmeg and honeycomb, opposite end of carrot. Oh, good, right, okay, so we've got sunshine, red berry, carrot, honeycomb, ocean, noir, black and nutmeg and umber. Okay, so they're the pencils we've got that we're going to be using. First ones I'm starting with will be the red berry and the carrot. Okay, so we're going to again create a palette on a scrap piece of watercolour card, and we're going to colour the petals as we've done before. The difference is we're going to wet the petal first. Now, my top tip for you is, I'm going to use the ocean to do this. If you're working with a white embossed image like this and you're finding it difficult to see where you're going to put the colour, do the outside first. So you can see here I've got the outside of my flower and here the half outside, so I can see where I'm going here. So what I would do, because I can see the white line when I'm closer up, is actually take my colour. So you can do it one of two ways, I'll show you. You can do it as I've done there, and then clean my brush. I'm going to need to use a new brush in a minute. There we go. Clean my brush. I can then drag that colour out up against the petal, and because the petal acts as a reservoir, I can then dry this, and I'm creating that surrounding colour to keep it, you know, so I can see where I'm going. You see what I mean? Now, you can do it like that, where you scribble your pencil direct onto the card, or you can do it with pencil picked up from a palette as well. So scribble yourself a palette. There we go. And then clean brush, clean water. Go around your image. So this is the wet to wet technique. So I'm wetting around the flower this time, not in the flower. And I'm only going to do half, because we'll just colour half of it, because the other half will be exactly the same. So that's water all around the outside of my flower. And then I go and pick up the colour from the palette I've just created and put it in. Now, look at the difference. Same colour. This is where the difference between wet and to wet. This is why I like wet and to wet. I feel it's much more loose and much more artistic. Look how beautiful that is looking. that wet into wet with that colour, because it will continue to move, and how much more regimented that looks up there. It's different, isn't it? Now, both equally good for whatever you're doing, but that's where wet into wet comes into its own, because you get a looser, more fluid application of the colour wherever you've put the water. What that does mean is you can see now where your petals are that you're going to start colouring, and it can just make it a little bit easier for you. So while you would think this is the last thing that you do, actually making it the first thing that you do can be very, very helpful. And then give it a dry. Whenever you're doing wet into wet techniques, you always dry one bit before you move to the next bit. Otherwise the colours will just move together and contaminate each other. Okay, we've got a nice comment to read out apparently. This is from Patricia Ann. Okay, Patricia Ann says, these new techniques are bringing a whole new world to my colouring, Leanne. Oh, no, whole new world to my colouring. Leanne is the most amazing teacher there is. Oh, Patricia, I'm sure I'm not, but thank you very much. I am learning so much through the entire course. Patricia, if you're learning, that is my job here done, and I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you very much for that lovely comment. It's very, very kind of you. I really do appreciate it. Right, so once we've done that there, we're now going to start adding the colour to the petals. So I'm going to take, again, my palette. So creating your palette, let's do it up here so you can see. Red berry. Let's have a bit of that. Let's have our carrot. And a little bit of sunshine. We all need sunshine in our lives. We all need sunshine in our lives. Right, so clean your brush, because I've had blue on there and I'm going to be using yellow. I don't want that to be green. So just make sure on your kitchen towel that you give your brush a clean and make sure there's no blue coming off. So you can see, even though I've got blue on the tip of my brush there, it's actually coming clear. There's no colour coming off, so I'm okay to go in and use the yellow with that. What I am going to do is pre-wet my petals. Remember, this is a wet into wet technique. So water only onto the petals. Let's do those first three. I'm going to do 4. So there we go, in with the water. And then we go in to that with the colour from our palette. So I'm going to start with the red berry and bring that in, and it will mix into the wet that's already there, and I can do that all the way down. These petals. There we go. The white resists. Right. If you need to add more colour to your palette, you can. Cool. A bit more red in there. And then I'm going to move on to my next colour. So I'm cleaning my brush, moving on to the carrot. And remember, it's wet into wet. So those colours will blend together. And I'll get a transition between them. There we go. I'll just focus on those 3, and then we can pick up the yellow and start to add that in. Now, that's quite subtle at the minute, and we want it to be more intense. So this is where we can start to build up and layer colour. So we're going to dry that. And then if you want to add in more colour, you can. So we're going to go more red and more carrot. And remember, you're picking up with your damp brush. And you can go in and intensify those colours. Liam is in a trance of colouring apparently. There we go. So you see how those three moving together, the red berry, the orange and the sunshine, are giving us that lovely transition between the three colours. And you really can build up the layers and make it much more intense if you want to, or you can leave it quite subtle as these are here. Just depends on the result that you want, you know, how you want it to look and feel. It's your piece of artwork at the end of the day, so you choose how you want it to look. Build up your colour intensity. There we go. And work around your petals, and you can just choose how much colour you do or don't use, and you can see it's coming together exactly the same. For your centre, we're going to use the umber and nutmeg, so again a palette. Wet into wet, so a little bit wet in the centre there because it'll blend more quickly for you. Go with the darkest around the outside. There we go. Just keep building that colour in, add more and more that you need as and when you need it. If you need to add more to your palette, please do. To pick that up. And then into your next colour, just into the centre of your flower. See, by doing wet into wet like this, it blends immediately. The two colours go together on the card. And then to really intensify that, you're probably going to want a little bit of your ebony. You see, I'll keep going back to my old palette. I'm not just keep putting new down, and that's just showing you what I was saying about keep your palettes, don't throw them away, because they will remain usable until you've used up all the pigment. It's not going to last forever, because you're going to pick all the colour up and use it. But until you've finished, until you've picked up as much colour as you can, that's what's going to happen. And then to do our leaves, I'm just going to do a little bit of ocean and sunshine. Mix a new green. Remember how we mixed a new palette before? Straight on with some water, wet into wet technique. Mix those together, which gives me a whole other different green that I don't have in my box, and paint that onto my leaf. So you can mix brand new colours too. Clean your brush. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that sunshine and add that to the tip of my leaf. And you can keep going and go all the way around with your blue. Intensify the blue at the edges if you want to. I'll just show you how to do that very quickly. Why not? Let's add a little bit more blue here. Go in with our brush. And you can intensify that by just dragging it out to the first wet into wet application that you did. And then I'll bring the other one in and show you. So you can see I'm just doing it round the edge where there would be more shade, so that it's dragging out into the faint blue line that I put around. Picking up from the palette, going straight into the colouring. Keeping it really loose because it is a watercolour at the end of the day. That's how I've done that. Okay, keep going, and that is how you do the wet into wet, and you will get your full floral all finished. And depending on the colour that you use, you'll get lots of different results. All right, so that's the wet into wet. Now we're going to have a look at some background techniques. So that's a little bit exciting. I'm going to put that to one side. Put my pencils back up here a minute. I'm going to show you how to sharpen a pencil in a second. And I'm just going to change my brush over because that one's empty. So pick up my new brush. We'll use this one. Perfect. Right, so I'm just going to grab my background techniques. And then we're going to have a look at how to do those. There's been a couple of cards that I've shown you, and I'm just going to find them where I've said, oh, that had a background technique, and that had a background technique. And I'll show you that. And so we're going to do that now. For example, this was one. That was a background technique. There's another background technique. There's another background technique. There's a different colour scheme for a background technique. Oh, this is exciting. And there's a different background technique. So quite a few different things you can do with your pencils in terms of that. So let's just take some time to have a look at how you can create those full backgrounds as well, and the different things that you're going to do. So where should we start? Let's start with a blended one. So we'll do this one. I need some card. I've mixed them all up. Oh dear. Never mind. We'll work it out as we go along. Right. So the colours I'm going to use for this is Sunshine, Bamboo, Verdant Green, there it is, Regal Blue. Got it, Regal Blue. And finally, Elderberry. There it is. Okay, so we're going Sunshine, Bamboo. So look, what I like to do here is I turn my pencils so that the colour that I'm going to use is facing up. Sunshine, Bamboo, Verdant Green, Regal Blue and Elderberry. And by doing that, it means when I take my pencil to colour, I know these are the colours that I'm using rather than these ones. So it just makes it easy. It's easier for me in my mind. Okay, so first things first, make sure you select your colours so that you know they'll blend together nicely, so I can see that those do. And we're going to use the palette again, and we're going to use a wider background brush. So you've got your background brush in your main box, didn't you? So you'll need a pot of water, your background brush and a piece of card to apply the colour to. And then just start with your first colour, and we're going to be creating a palette again. So palette with my first colour is Sunshine. And because we're doing a background, you might need a bit more than we had before. So just get your colour down. Doesn't matter, does it? Because we've talked about the fact that you can go back and reuse your palette again. Get your brush nice and damp. Let's put those down. That's the order I'm going to use them in. Brush nice and damp. Use your tissue because you want it damp, not soaking. Pick up your colour. And apply it to the card. I wish you could all hear Liam. Oh, wow! That was a bit more vibrant than I thought. Absolutely. And then we're going with the next colour, which was Bamboo. So palette beside Bamboo, working while this one's still wet. I'm not bothering to clean my brush because I'm wanting them all to move in to one another. Pick up the Bamboo. And I might need to put a little bit more Bamboo on there. Yeah. So if it's not quite dark enough, get some more of your colour down on the palette. Just a scrap piece of card. Pick it up with your brush. And we're moving between the two. Okay, and the next colour was Verdant Green. it up on your brush between the two. Next one was Regal Blue. I'm going to clean my brush for that one. Brush is damp, not soaking. Pick up the colour. You see how that's working there. You can intensify by adding a bit more blue if you want. And the next colour was Elderberry, I think. I'm just going to add a bit more of that blue, actually. I would like a bit more. Is that the right colour? Regal Blue, yeah. And I have done a massive piece of card, by the way. The swatches on here, they're much smaller. So start with a piece of card much, much smaller than I've got here. I've just picked up a huge piece. I'm going to have some more of the blue. And you can see, look, I've been able to intensify that. And when you put the blue on like this, then is the final thing, when the colour's almost off your brush, that's when you do the wipe between the two, and that gets the transition. Okay. Then I'm going to clean my brush because I'm going in next with my Elderberry. Don't you do a big, unless you want a big background, there's nothing to say you can't have a big background, but you know, pick up your Elderberry colour on your brush and then do the same. And what you'll get is, you see there, I'm getting an indigo blue colour mixing between the Elderberry and the Regal Blue. And if you want to intensify that Elderberry colour, you can just keep adding more. Okay, so that's easy, isn't it? And I'm just going to do a final, very subtle wash of that colour. I'm going to use up some of what's left on my palette just to finish that up there. Okay, so you just keep doing your washes. Between them, you get that lovely rainbow effect. And when you use a smaller piece of cardstock, you get a nice, small colour rainbow wash. I wish you could hear Liam. He's like Muttley. Laugh. If you don't know who Muttley is, I'm sure you do know who Muttley is. Which is incredibly supportive, isn't it? Anyway, let's put that to one side. So that's how you do your background wash. Easy, whether you're doing a larger or a smaller one. So that's your first background technique. Done. The next one you're going to love. You're going to love, 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 love the next one. I have to say, it's my favourite. I'm going to be bold and say this is my favourite. It's called a confetti background. Okay, so everybody, Liam's, yes, yes, I've been waiting for this one. Taylor, this is brilliant. Right, so we're going to definitely do this for you. So you need to pick your colours so you know they're going to work together. You don't want to end up with a muddy brown mess. So to pick your colours, as an example for this one, I'm going to be using Regal Blue. Regal Blue, Elderberry, Iris, which is on the end of Elderberry. Regal Blue, Elderberry and Iris, just those three colours. And you're going to need your spritzer, which came in your main box. Okay, so you need your spritzer and you need those three colours to start. You also need a craft knife, and that is all you need. Now then, first thing you're going to do is lightly spritz your card. Okay, so I'm just going to show you here. First thing, before you even get to this point, lightly spritz your card. So when I say lightly, I mean lightly. It's hard, like a very fine perfume, hardly any. Right, okay, so I've got that on there. Lightly spritzed my card. It's just, say, misted. Okay, not a lot at all. Enough, but not a lot. Then you're going to take, and this is where you have to be very careful with your pencils, then you're going to take your craft knife and your pencil, and you're going to lightly scrape pieces of the pencil lead so that it lands on your card. So you can see that happening there. The card's bending because it's ever so slightly damp. So if I do a little bit down here and you're just randomly going, and I see I'm hardly touching the surface of my pencil, and I'm just using the very, very fine tip of my craft knife. Card's starting to flatten because it's starting to dry out a little bit. Okay, so that's the first one. That's with the Regal Blue. You can see on your first step, that's what I've done there. Second step is to continue with each of the colours. So now I'm going to do the same with the Iris and the Elderberry. So I'm just, with the tip of my craft knife, and you can see I'm just going around in a very random fashion, getting little bits of pencil lead, like that. And the final colour is the Elderberry. We've used this a lot, so I'm going to be able to show you how to sharpen this one, which is good. So just little bits, you don't want a lot. Okay, Elderberry done. So I've got tiny little bits now all over there. Then what you're going to do is get your spritzer bottle again, and you're going to hold it about 8 to 10 inches above your card, and you're going to spritz and watch the colours start to diffuse. And this is where you achieve a really nice, and when you achieve a nice pattern, be ready with your heat gun. Now a top tip is if you're too close with your spritzer, it's just all going to blast off the page. So you need to be really high and ready with your heat gun, okay, for when you get your nice pattern. So high up, 8 to 10 inches, spritz. Watch the magic happen. Can you see? So those colours start to intensify and they all start to move around with each other. And make a little party, a little confetti party on your card. As soon as they start to move and you're happy, heat gun. Because if you keep going, you'll lose the little specks and it'll just all make a watercolour wash background. So you want to stop the water moving too much once your pigment is wet and dry it in place. Keep moving your heat gun around because you don't want to burn your card. And once you can see that it's starting to dry, you can turn it over and do it from the other side. And eventually it will start to flatten. Just watch your fingers. There we go. And you can see, depending on how much you've put on there, that you get that really lovely confetti look because the pigment has all started to explode on the card. Now when you put, I put a little bit, so you can do a little bit or a lot. If you put a lot into one concentrated area, you get more of this result. If you spread it out a little bit more, you get that result. Spread it out a little bit more, you get that result. If you really want to go to town, this is how we've done the background here, using the same colours in that confetti way. And you can see by using bigger bits of scraping from your pencil, you get larger areas, and you can layer them up as well. So for example, if you get to that point, you think, oh, but I want more. It's not enough, I want more. You can go back in because it's still relatively damp. Just do a fine little mist. And the mist, the first mist, actually all that does is grab the pigment and keep it still. It doesn't add to the effect. It just stops it from flying all over and off your card. You can go back and let's concentrate on just this area in the middle, so I don't have to do the full card. I can add more in. So that's the Regal Blue. Might add a little bit of the opposite blue in and all, why not? It's blue's blue, isn't it, at the end of the day? A little bit of this purple. So you can go in and add more. Once it's dry, remember. Now, can you remember we did the masking technique in one of our first auto ships where we had the masking tape? This confetti background's brilliant. Let's say you've done a butterfly like this. Make a mask for your butterfly, stick it over the top, do your confetti background over, peel the mask away. You've got the confetti all in the background and your butterfly standing out. It's brilliant for doing that. Once I've put more in the middle there, because I wanted more of an effect, I go back in, just with a fine mist, and you can just wait. Don't keep going water, 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 more water, because the little bit of water that you've got will start to, and they will keep moving. You see how that colour in the centre now, where I put more, is much more intense. Oh, Heidi thinks it looks like handmade paper. Thank you, Heidi. Just little spritzes, and then dry it. And if you do too much water, it will all just mix into one mess. So you want to keep those little speckles, which is why I keep doing a little mist and then bringing out my heat gun. Because you want to keep the speckle. You don't want to obliterate it, but you do want it to move so you can see the intensified colour. And that's much more intense in the centre there. Done. Look how fabulous that is. It's beautiful, isn't it? It really is lovely. So that's your confetti background. That can be cut up, matte and laid, whatever you want to do with it. Really, really lovely and easy to do. And of course, all of the different colour combinations you can do are going to make that look amazing. Okay, so that's confetti background. And now we can have a look at splodged background on a sentiment. Why not? Before we do that, I'm going to show you how to sharpen your pencil, because my elderberry could do with a little sharpen. It's probably before I would sharpen it, but I do want to show you. So this pencil sharpener is exceptional quality. You've got the little reservoir to catch all of your pieces. Can I just say what I do as well? I've got a couple of pots at home. When I sharpen my pencil, I keep the sharpens to do a confetti background. So I don't waste the pigment. We can show, I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you it on another piece of card. We're live. We could do what we like, can't we? Let me show you that. So to sharpen your pencil, you keep your pencil still, put your pencil in, hold it firmly, don't strangle it, and turn your sharpener. Do not turn your pencil, because if you turn your pencil, see how that's sharpening and that lovely. If you turn your pencil, you break your lead, because the lead inside and the wood want to move at different speeds. They're two different materials, soft lead, harder wood on the outside. By doing that with your pencil in a pencil sharpener, you turn the wood and the lead at different rates, and that's how you get breaks all the way down your pencil. So if when you're sharpening, your lead keeps breaking, that's what's happened. So you need to keep your pencil still, turn your sharpener. Never ever sharpen in a different way. Now, look, all of that, what I've just sharpened there to get my beautiful point on my elderberry, I can now remove the wood. There's my sharpened pieces. Let's take rid of them. Let's put this back on and do another colour. Let's do this blue. And look at the point. It's an incredible sharpener. Honestly, guys, it is really fantastic. Then, and I do it one colour at a time. See what I've done there? And then this saves you wasting any of that beautiful pigment, because that would have all been wasted because we've done the sharpening. Now what I have done in the past, this is a dry brush, what you can do is just ooch them about. You can blow them if you want to. I use a dry paint brush. That means if you want, you can bring them further in and have more of a focused result, whatever you want. When you're happy with it, spritzer. What have I done with my spritzer? Spritzer, where are you? Here it is. And spritz. From your 8 to 10 inches again. You can go a little bit closer if you want. They'll all start to move and melt. When you're happy, blast it with your heat gun. Heidi says, this is probably the most valuable thing I've learned today. Mind blowing. Heidi, I'm pleased I could be of help, honestly. It's just these little tips that you wouldn't think of yourself, isn't it? You can keep going back in with some water to move it around, and then just go in with your heat gun and dry it, and you're going to get this beautiful textured confetti background that you can use in your projects, and you haven't wasted your pencil sharpenings. And I do that after every time I sharpen with a couple of colours that match. I mean, if you just keep putting more and more sharpenings in there and you don't ever do this, then it's going to end up a muddy mess. But if you're doing in colour families, as I've done here, it's a very, very easy thing for you to do. You can also bring in your paint brushes, you know, and move them around. It could be a little paint palette if you want to do that. It's entirely up to you. So you see, that's just a more abstract version of the confetti background that we've just done, but we've done it with our pencil sharpenings. And if you trimmed that down, they look different, of course, but at least you haven't wasted it. You haven't wasted that beautiful pigment that you've just sharpened out of your pencil. You've done something useful with it. You can cut it down and use it another day for a beautiful background. Okay, so that's what you're doing. Good, so we've had a look at how to sharpen correctly and how not to waste the stuff that you sharpen out. Let's have a quick look at how to do this lovely splodgy background. So I've got a sentiment here. I'm going to get another piece for a palette. Let's move that. This is heat embossed exactly as the flower, so it's heat embossed in white. I use a white pigment ink. Let me show you. I use a white pigment ink and a white embossing powder and heat emboss the sentiment. And the sentiment that I've heat embossed, if I can find it, go over here. Honestly, what am I like? I mean, I start out so organised and then it all goes Pete tongue, I'll not lie. I've got Spread Your Wings and Fly, one of them from the stamp set that you're getting in the box. Two different ways of doing it. We'll have a look at both. I've got two pieces embossed. You can do either, but you've got your instructions as well. So they'll be photographed and uploaded for you. Now, we've used greens and blues here. So the colours we've used here are Sunshine. I might use Mango for a change. Sunshine, Bamboo, Verdant Green, Sunshine, Verdant Green, Bamboo, Opal Blue. Opal Blue, that's Ocean. There's Opal. Right, so we've got Sunshine, Verdant, Bamboo, Opal. Now the first one is to scribble your colours on a palette, on your watercolour card, and apply water with your brush. It needs the colours to be really wet so that you can splash the colour down. So you pick it up on your brush and kind of just flick it at the card. Where's my big brush gone? Here it is. Thank you, big brush. And then you can kind of scooch it about. Honestly, there is no right or wrong with this. You're going to do both a little bit differently, but you're going to get great results. And there's no right or wrong. As long as you can read the sentiment, who cares, to be honest? So we're going to do a palette, and that is, I'm going to go Mango for one. Why not? Do a little bit of a change. And I'll need quite a bit of colour, so I'm getting that down. But remember, you don't have to waste your palettes, you can keep them. I'm going with the Verdant. Is that Verdant? Yes, Verdant. There we go. I'm going with the bamboo. And the ocean. Opal, I beg your pardon. Opal blue. Okay, so the first one, we need the colour to be quite wet and you need to not have anything important on your desk because we're going to splat it. So into your water pot with your brush. Pick up your first colour. And then splat. I mean, we can all do that. Okay, then clean your brush. And these are Leanne terms, they're not necessarily technical terms. More colour. Splat it in. Okay. And then a dry, more wet, next colour. And you want some quite big splotches of colour like that, where there's a lot of water mixing in. Can you see that? That's what's going to make the sentiment really stand out. Yes, that's exactly what you want to do, Taylor. You want to make some little puddles. So you want plenty of water with your colour. Make some puddles. Okay, and then I've got a mess all over here. I apologise in advance. Definitely make sure you've got your work area really well covered, unlike me. Okay. So you can see I'm just building them up. And what it's doing is using all of these colours and it's mixing new colours for me. And then you can give it a little dry. If you feel the colours are mixing all in too much, give it a dry. Liam says it's like you're revealing the sentiment. You will see it as it goes. You just want these to dry. Off it goes. Now, if I go too close, what happens is, I'm just going to show you, I've got my heat gun really high, because if I go close with my heat gun, you see how it blows the water around and takes that effect away. So by holding my heat gun pretty high, it gives the heat, but it stops the colour being moved, so it'll stay still, but you'll still get the drying effect. And you just need to keep moving it around, and you need to be patient with it, because obviously you've got a lot of water on there. And we can go back in and add more as we go. If we blot that, you're going to lose the intensity of the colour, which is not what you want to do. So keeping your heat gun high as well means that you don't singe and burn your card. So it's definitely a time for patience, this technique, but you do get some great results with it. There we go. So you can see it's starting to dry. You can see here this effect's lovely. It's much darker around the outside here. And you can even chase it a little bit, you see, because you get some beautiful effects where the water starts to move. You will get, and of course, Taylor makes a good point, every time you do this it will look very, very different. So now I feel I've got a lot of green and yellow there and I want some real hits of blue. So I'm going to go in with my blue again on my palette. I'm going to pick up the blue and I'm going to go in and hit the blue. I mean, probably need a bit more water. There we go. So you see I can get some of that nice intense blue really aimed in around that sentiment. Go back in with my heat gun. And you'll just keep doing that, building up the different colours on top of each other, drying in between, chasing it around, letting it build up its own kind of channel, its own direction, letting it dry. And as that happens, it really does layer up and look fabulous. And I'll show you on this final one. So you would let that dry, spread your wings. I need a little bit more blue up here so you can really read the sentiment. But when you do that, that's exactly what we're achieving there. So you would just continue and build that up and then you cut it out and you've got that lovely, really what makes you look like a bit of an artist. Now this one was a little bit different because this one, you just add the colour on with your brush. So could say a little bit easier. So the same colours for your palette. And just randomly, wherever, you know, on your palette, just choose some colours that make you happy. Can be whatever you want, as long as they work together. So I've got a mixture of greens and blues here. And then what I'm going to do with this one is just do a very fine wash. And then with my brush, I would splodge those colours in. Clean the brush in between. And so just keep some differentiation in the colours so they don't all mix in together where you're putting them in different places. Dry them. Liam thinks that almost looks like a landscape background. Absolutely. I mean, you know, you can do whatever takes your fancy basically. And all you're doing is picking the colour up from your palette, splodging it in. Taylor says I'm like Bob Ross on every show. Well, I certainly look like him, Taylor. That's a for sure. That is a for sure. Bob and I could have been brother and sister if Bob was younger, I was older, but you never know. Okay, there we go. So just keep adding your colours in, keep drying in between. That's what we've done for this one. You can intensify them, use different colours. It's going to look entirely different every single time, but you can see the same colours, two different ways of applying, two entirely different looks and feels for a background. The last one to show you very quickly is using a piece of acetate or your glass mat. So I've got a piece of acetate here. Let's pick some different colours this time because we've used a lot of green and blue up to now. So let's change around and do some purples. So I've got a purple here. I've got a blue. And I've got a elderberry. Okay, so we're going to do this technique. I'm going to create this background here, which is a little bit less precise than your confetti technique. If I put the two side by side, you can see the difference. This is much more blended. This is much more precise with the little pieces. So all you're going to do on your acetate, there's a piece of acetate here underneath, is take your damp brush, wet your colour, put it onto your acetate, work with one colour at a time. And I'm not going to do the full piece of card, I'm just going to do a small piece of it so you get the idea. You would need to work on the acetate in a bigger way if you were going to do a bigger background, but just for a small piece you can see I'm using the colours separately. So this is the blue that's going on there now. Then I'm cleaning my brush and I'm going to pick up the elderberry colour. That's going inside now. Okay, and then I'm going to take my piece of watercolour card. I'm just going to spritz the top lightly because it'll pick the colour up. Excuse me. You dip your card into that, give it a rub, and when you peel it away, you get your background technique, and then you can dry it. And you can go subtle, so you can dry it and just do once, or you can keep going back and you get that lovely, as you pick up all the colour, you get that lovely mixing on there of all the colours together, and then dry it. And that gives you a lovely, more subtle, excuse me, background effect, depending on how many of those colours you put on there. Okay, wow, it's been a whirlwind, guys, it really has. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with you. I hope you've enjoyed it too. We've learned a lot with our watercolour pencils, have we not? I'm really excited to see what you do with them. So get practicing your techniques, share them in the Academy of Colour Facebook group. Let us see what you do with them. Let us know what you think of the techniques, and share your coloured images so we can all see how talented you are and how far you've come on your journey. And I'll see you back when the next box lands.